career in an operations position, and I looked around and it looked like the folks in marketing were just having a little bit more fun. And honestly, I was fascinated with what is marketing, what is attractive about marketing, and what is the function of marketing. And for me, it's trying to help people decide to do something that maybe they weren't necessarily planning to do, and that seemed like a pretty interesting challenge.
Okay, so in order to get a little bit, to know a little bit more about you, what was your first job?
My very, very first job was, I had a lawn service when I was about 13. I bought a lawnmower and started cutting yards in the neighborhood.
So good entrepreneurial spirit.
From an early age.
Okay, so what do you think has been your best job, and why do you consider it to be the best?
Well, I think I'm in my best job. I think the job I'm in now is the best suited for me. I love what I do. It has a lot of challenge. I work with great people, with wonderful people, and so every day is something new. It's not very routine, which fits for me. So I honestly think that the job I'm currently in is probably the best job.
Okay, great. So, and also along the journey of people's career path, they sort of learn what they don't like to do. Is there a job that you consider either your worst or one that you view as more of a learning experience for what you don't want to do?
There are probably a lot of those. I was trying to think of an example that would really, that stands out in my mind. I think one for me was a role that I had one time where it was more of a sales position, where there was a lot of rejection involved, and I found out really quickly I don't like a lot of rejection. So for me that was pointing me more toward marketing and less towards sales.
Okay, so what are some common mistakes that you feel that people in your industry make?
In the industry, I'm not sure that there is a common mistake. I think what we try to do is figure out what we do best. And so I guess you look at everyone, and depending on what they're trying to accomplish, they probably feel like what they're doing is the right thing for their brand, for their business, and for what their aspirations for their business are. So it's probably more about, for me, not what are you not doing right, but it's what could you do better to accomplish that aspiration or that goal that you have for your organization, reaching that target.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the Chick-fil-A sort of philosophy in terms of your marketing and how that may be unique to maybe what other companies are doing?
Well, I'm not sure that I would necessarily deem everything totally unique, but to execute consistently, I think, is what helps to make any marketing strategy unique. So for us, it's about trying to create a remarkable experience every time we have an interaction with someone who wants to do business with us.
Great. If you weren't doing the job that you currently have, what would you like to do and why?
I think I would like to be a writer and write a book. I just think that that's a pretty interesting way to leave something behind, hopefully someday, that would be of interest to someone else. So I'd probably try to pursue being a writer.
Okay. Okay. Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter?
Facebook most often.
And is there a reason that there is a preference, or?
For me, the preference is time.
Yeah.
I don't have as much time to do all of the others, and I'm not sure anybody who really wants to follow me on Twitter. I don't think I do anything that would be that interesting that I think people would want to follow me. So I like Facebook because I can actually find out what other people are doing. It's more about what others are doing, not what I'm doing.
Okay. And if you started your dream company, what 3 people, of anyone that you could choose from, who would you hire, and what roles would they have?
Wow. Honestly, if I was starting a dream company, I would probably turn to my family first, and I would probably start with my 3 closest relatives, my wife, my daughter, and my son-in-law, and try to build something together that we could leave with them that they could pass on to their children. And I'm not even sure what it would be, but I think those are the 3 people I'd be most comfortable going into business with.
Great, that's a great answer. What is one thing you wish companies would do more in terms of marketing?
In terms of marketing, I don't know that, that's a really good question. Probably, I wish that maybe companies would pause and think more about what they're trying to communicate. Instead of trying to tell people everything about their business, tell them what they want to know, make it more relevant. I think to the extent that you can communicate a marketing message that is relevant for where someone is, the more likely it is to stick with them.
And what is the best piece of career advice you've been given?
This may sound funny, but I think the best piece of career advice anyone ever gave me was to remember that people don't think about me as much as I think they do.
That's okay. And what is there a piece of advice or a recommendation you would make to companies looking to sort of build their brand?
I think if you're going to build your brand, there are a couple of things. Number one, be sure you know what, at the end of the day, what you want your brand to stand for. Make sure that everything that you do to build your brand leads to that end. End of the day, what do you want it to be? Say that it's more purpose-driven and not necessarily financially driven. And if you get the purpose right, typically the finance will take care of itself. So that would be my encouragement.
That's great. Is there one project that you have been most proud of, and why?
You know, sometimes I think the project I hope to be most proud of is probably the next one, and I'm not sure what it will be.
Okay.
There have been a lot of projects that I don't think they're my accomplishments. I don't think there are very many things I would point to that said that was a result of something I did. It's usually the result of a collective group of people coming together and doing something that really mattered.
Oh, that's great. Okay. And what are the biggest changes you've seen in terms of how companies are now approaching their advertising and their marketing? Has there been any sort of significant change or shift you see in how they view it or their approach?
I think for me, obviously over the last few years, I think everyone is trying to understand how social media is going to affect their business and what they can do with social media to help their marketing. And as that continues to change and evolve, I think it is really consumer driven. So it's not like you can make it happen. You really are dependent on your customers to make it happen. So I think that's probably the next big thing, is to try to figure out how digitally we can reach more people and extend the messages beyond our current media platforms.
Okay, and so Chick-Fil-A is kind of become known for its tongue-in-cheek advertising, is for eat more chicken with the cows. So when you first launched this campaign, what were the responses like? Were people wondering what you were doing? Were they positive? Because it's been a very memorable campaign, and people immediately identify it with your brand. So.
You know what? We are really, really fortunate. But from the beginning, it's a campaign that people fell in love with. We get very few negative comments. Probably, I don't want to dwell on the negative, but I think for elementary school teachers, the fact that the cows don't necessarily know how to spell is something that challenges, it's kind of a challenge, but they understand the premise. So in that lighthearted humor kind of way, we think the cows are more like the mindset of a 7-year-old who just wants to kind of burst into your day and somehow disrupt it a little bit and bring your attention to their cause. And that is clearly, don't eat me. It's a self-preservation message. So from the beginning, we've been really fortunate that it's the type of campaign that can be refreshed, it can be relevant, and it's a little like a cartoon strip that as long as we stay focused and keep the cows in character, I think it has quite a life in front of it. We believe it has quite a life in front of it.
Is there something that you see maybe companies getting wrong, or that you think maybe they should try differently in regards to how they market and advertise themselves? Is there something that you would like to see companies try more of and do less of?
I don't know. This would be more of a personal thing for me. I think less invasive is very subtle. Be part of the entertainment, not a plus. Not be if you're watching programming, to the extent that you feel like you're still part of the programming. I think that is a little bit less intrusive. It's really hard to do, and it's really expensive to do it well. And I don't mean just product placement and those kinds of things. It's more like, is your creative strong enough that I want to watch it? Is it engaging enough that it keeps me entertained? Does it tell me something I want to know about your business? Is it something I want to know about your business instead of trying to tell me what you want me to know? How is it going to affect me as a consumer? I wonder if we couldn't get a little better at balancing those two things.
That's a good point. And so how do you judge the success of a marketing or advertising campaign, either personally or as a company? When do you know that you have a success?
Well, I think for me, this is kind of probably my personal perspective more than maybe a corporate view, but I think it probably holds true. I believe a campaign is successful when it becomes shorthand for the brand. When people look at a cow that has an eat more chicken thing, we really can, in most of our markets now, not have to place our logo on it because it becomes shorthand for Chick-fil-A. It differentiates us from a brand perspective. So if a campaign has an icon or becomes so iconic that it becomes shorthand, then I think that's a pretty good sign you're doing something really well.
Okay, great. And where do you find creative inspiration?
For me personally, I like music. Music is kind of, for me, one of those, it's a part of life that can inspire, it can engage, it can take me to a point in time and remind me of a moment and inspire me and move me in ways that very few other things really do for me emotionally, kind of connect me to things. So for me, inspiration, I think music is a huge inspiration for me.
Okay. And what are the kinds of qualities you think make for a memorable ad campaign? Are there any examples outside of Chick-fil-A that you think have been good examples of someone that's gotten it right?
Yeah, I think those that get it right are the ones that people talk about the day after. And there are lots of good examples that we could probably name that just kind of cut through and break through. And even in a TiVo world, you're willing to stop the TiVo to watch that spot and then talk about it tomorrow around the water cooler. Those are the creative elements that get it right, and I probably have some that come to mind for me. I think the E-Trade baby does that for E-Trade. I think Geico's done a good job. I think Aflac has done a good job of taking their advertising and associating it to their brand. Those are the kind of things that I think make it successful.
Okay, and finally, what are you most looking forward to about your talk today at the AdFed?
I think it's just sharing why we do what we do, because we are a little unique in our advertising. When you look at the fast food world and all the competition that we advertise against, there are a lot of things that I hope to share with the group about the way we do things, and that wouldn't necessarily work for the other brands. So we're not doing it to say, hey, do it like we do, but there are some reasons behind the way we do what we do, and a lot of it has to do with the financial resources and just trying to leverage everything we have. So I'm looking forward to kind of sharing that, as well as how the cows actually came to Chick-fil-A and when all that started and how it came about. I'm going to kind of unpeel that a little bit.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.